Good morning, boys and girls. Today is Wednesday, April 15th, and I hope that you all had a wonderful spring break, and we're ready to jump right back into fractions today. So I'm going to start up at the top with our objective, which says, today we'll learn that sometimes fractions are equal to one whole. So this is not information that's new to you because we talked about this the week before we took a break from home learning. So we're going to review our vocabulary, which actually are the same words that we had the day before we left. So we have the word circle, which of course you all know what that is. Just a type of shape. And then we have the word partition. So I'm actually going to start with that word partition. So the word partition has a chunk in it, which I've underlined here. I've underlined the chunk part. And the reason is because we've talked about that the word part, that chunk part, actually gives us a clue about what the word partition means. So tap your head if you remember what the word partition means. Tap your head if you remember. All right, so if you were thinking that when you partition something, you're actually dividing an object into smaller shares or into smaller parts, you're exactly right. That's exactly what partitioning means. So up here, when we come back to the circles, you can see that I have partitioned these circles into smaller shares. So I started with a whole circle, okay? So this is just written as a 1. Okay, in words we would call it a whole. Now I partitioned this circle into halves. So 1/2, 1 out of 2 parts, is shaded. So we could say that 1/2 is shaded, or we can say that there are 2 halves. All right. Over here, I've divided this circle into like a peace sign, so into 3 shares. And I have shaded 2/3 of the shares. I've shaded 2 parts out of 3 parts altogether. So 2/3, or we would say that the circle is divided or partitioned into thirds. And then zooming in on this last one, we have divided or partitioned the circle into 4 different parts. So I also went ahead and I shaded all 4 of those parts. So altogether there are 4 shares. And 4 of those shares are shaded. So 4 out of 4 is how you would represent the fraction for this circle. This is also equal to 1 whole, okay? It looks like it says 1/4, but it's actually 1 whole, okay? So we would say this circle is divided into 4ths and that the whole thing is shaded, okay? Okay, so now that I've gone over our important vocabulary, I just wanted to review again another example of what it means to have 1 whole fraction. And so I have the book set here for the Kingdom of Renly. You guys recognize this this book collection. And in this book set, there are actually 4 books altogether. There is book 1, The Lost Stone. There's book 2, The Scarlet Dragon. There is book 3, Sea Monster. And book 4, The Witch's Curse. Now, in the whole book set, there are 4 books, okay? Now, some of you have read only the first book. So you've read 1 out of 4 books, okay? Some of you have read 2 out of 4 books of this text set. You've read The Lost Stone and The Scarlet Dragon, and you have 2 more to read in this book set. Some of you have read 3 out of these 4 books. So you've also read Sea Monster. You've read 3 out of 4 books in this text set, but some of you have actually read all 4. You've also read The Witch's Curse, which means you've read 4 out of 4 books in this text set, which means you've actually read the whole text set. You've read the entire collection in this particular text set. So you would say that you read the whole text, okay? All right, so now it is time for me to model a couple of problems for you so that you know what you're going to be doing today in your independent practice. So the directions at the top of the page say, shade given parts and tell how many parts make one whole. So number 1 says shade 4/4 of the rectangle. How many fourths make one whole? And what part of the rectangle is shaded? So I'm going to go in with a pencil, and I'm just actually going to label the number of shares that there are. So there are 1, 2, 3, and 4 shares altogether. So I know that for my fraction, the total number is going to be out of 4. So the denominator is going to be 4. Now it says how many fourths make one whole? So in other words, it's saying how many of these shares do you have to shade in order for the entire rectangle to be shaded? All right. This is very interesting. I'm shading in this rectangle, and I'm noticing as I'm doing that, actually the lines that have been printed in my math book are coming off almost like this colored pencil is erasing the lines. How interesting. I wonder why that is. So I've gone ahead and I've shaded the entire rectangle. So I can see very clearly that in order for the entire rectangle to be shaded, I needed to shade all 4 parts. So now 4 out of 4 of these shares are shaded. So how many fourths make one whole? Well, in this particular case, and in any case where we're talking about fourths, 4 fourths make one whole. So I would write 4 fourths equals one whole. Okay, so if we're talking about partitioning a shape into fourths, then 4 of them are going to add up to the whole. What part of the rectangle is shaded? So I already did that over here. So I would say that 4 out of 4 shares are shaded. Okay, I'm going to do another one. It says shade 3/3 of the circle. So 1, 2, 3. And then it says how many thirds make one whole? So again, even without coloring, I know what the answer is going to be, because what this question is really asking is if I were to shade in the entire circle, how many shares would I need to shade? And essentially, if I'm making a whole, they're talking about the whole shape, so I would need to color in the entire thing, right? So 3/3 equals one whole. So I write 3/3 equals one whole. Okay. And then it says what part of the circle is shaded? And I'm going to write a fraction for this one. So 3/3 of this circle is shaded. And then I also want to show, which I didn't do in the last one, but I want to show that 3/3 is equal to 1. So if I have 3 shares out of 3 possible shares colored in, that means the whole thing is shaded. So I can write a fraction for this circle just like this, 3 out of 3. But then 3 out of 3 also means the whole circle is shaded. So I want to give both of these answers. I could say that 3 out of 3 shares are shaded, or one whole circle is shaded. All right. So now that I've done a couple of problems for you, it's time for you to go check out your independent practice pages. So as usual, you'll have 2 options. You will either go into Google Classroom and you'll print off the math sheets. I believe there are 4 of them for you to complete today, including the challenge problems. So make sure that you try those today and every day. Those are not optional. Or you will complete the assignment on Seesaw. So your choice, either option 1, print it off and do it using a pencil and some crayons or colored pencils or markers, or you can do the whole assignment on Seesaw. Now, whether you choose option 1 or option 2, you will still do a math presentation for your final check for understanding today. So I'm looking for a presentation for problems 1 and problems 2 on your final check for understanding. Looking forward to seeing all of your work on Seesaw today. All right, good luck.